Well, hello, and how you doing? Welcome to a special recorded show today, since it's the holiday weekend or holiday week rather. I thought we'd just do one of the shows taped so we can all enjoy the holiday more. I'm working poor Taylor to death, isn't that right, sir?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure, whatever. So, what do you got going on for the holiday?
Oh, just having Thanksgiving dinner with my family. How about you?
No, yeah, we're going down to Corsicana and see my folks
Yeah.
and family. No big deals. If I
Yeah,
sound a
we're taking
little,
the private jet out to
oh, okay,
I'm just kidding.
yeah, private jet, yeah.
Down the street in Burleson.
Yeah, you go, "Well, that'll be a quick trip then."
Yeah.
Well, if I sound a little rough, it's all this junk in the air. It's not RSV, it's not COVID, it's just allergies, and I usually don't get allergies, but as I've gotten older, I've become more sensitive to it, and it is what it is. Anyway, today I'm just gonna give a recap on the election because I got a lot of feedback on my last show that I talked about this. There was 2 days after the election, and I asked several of my friends across the political spectrum, "Give me your thoughts on it," and I got a lot of feedback on it, really good feedback, from both the Democrat and the Republican side. So I'll be looking at that, also giving my 2 cents about Mr. Trump's 3rd swing at the pitch for president. So, and if I sound fatigued, it's because it's not just the cold, it's also Mr. Trump is back. Anyway, so we'll get to talk about that. Also, just some brief analyses, if you will, about what's going on with the Congress and what we can expect from that. But before we jump into all that fun, let's talk about our sponsors who making all this possible. Thank you to Daniel CrossFit Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire. Check out www.crossfitburleson.com if you want to check out all the various plans, programs, trainers, training, etc. It's a good time to go work out because it's getting cold out there. You don't want to let it go get flabby and out of shape. I mean, look at me. You don't want to be this. So CrossFit Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire. Thank you to Shandy Stogsdill. You're hearing all about what's going on with the rates. You hear what's going on about the market. Talk to somebody who knows what's going on with about this, not just somebody's opinion or somebody's 2 cents in the New York Times. Talk to a professional like Shandy Stocksdale, turning transactions into relationships, and she'll help you get into that house in Burleson or the Burleson area you're trying to get into. Thank you to Otto at our place. Of course, everybody knows Otto at our place. They're very busy these days. If you want a Thanksgiving pie, I'd order it today because they do a lot of pies for Thanksgiving. And if you just walk in on Wednesday afternoon, say, I need a pie for tomorrow, they may not be able to help you or you won't get as much of a choice. So if you have some sort of pie needs or any other needs, call Otto at our place. Thank you to Chris over at Wild Cigar and Culture. I have a message from Chris. I'm going to go pull it up because I asked some of my sponsors what they would like for us to talk about. And basically, he's saying, "Hey, take a break from the shopping and come on in." It says, "Less shopping, more noggin." Friday night after Black Friday shopping, there'll be Christmas music, Christmas cocktails, and just to relax. And they'll have some Black Friday deals of their own. So they're going to be also open on 5 o'clock on Thanksgiving. So if you're getting, you've had enough of the family and you want to see the second half of the Cowboy game in some peace with a decent smoke and a decent drink, go over to Wild Cigar. Usually about 3:30, I've had enough, and most people have too. So thank you to Chris at Wild Cigar and Culture. Also, thank you to Tiffany over at localitex.com. Check out their webpage because they're going to have a lot of Thanksgiving and Christmas related deals coming up soon. The new magazine will be out next week. So check it out. It'll help you with your shopping. And shopping local is a really big deal. I was getting a couple of messages from Alex Phillips saying to kind of remind people to do that. Shopping local makes a big difference in our community because the money stays here, helps pay taxes, helps pay employees, it helps businesses thrive. So Local Life Magazine certainly does its share in promoting that concept. Also, thank you to Southern Gem, fine jewelry and gemstones. Gala is more than just a jewelry store. She is a jewel expert. She has the credentials. She has the training, whatnot. She can design, she can clean, she can repair, and she has wonderful inventory. Christmas season is here, and my wife works there, and she's saying they're pretty busy. And ladies, go in there and make a wish list so the husbands know what to buy. Men, go in there and ask ladies for what they think, and they can tell you what looks good. So, Southern Gym on the top of the Windmiller building. Also, thank you to Hot Works. Michelle has also asked me to pass this along. She didn't have any particular specials, but she also said to to Food isn't an enemy, she says. Enjoy the meal and dessert, and then get back to health, wholesome intake, and activity. So I'm glad she said that because everybody gets on these workout programs or diet programs. They get all worked up if they have a piece of pie. She's saying have that pie, but just make sure you work it off later. And I bet one of the best places to do that is at HotWorks with 11 different infrared systems. Also, thank you to Melissa at 682-804-0534. She's your Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent. She's my agent. She could be your agent. She really knows her stuff, and she'll check out your plans, make sure that you're getting the best deal possible. Okay, and we got lots of stuff going on at Christmas. Christmas ornament fundraiser for Re-Inspire over at Bennett's in downtown Cleveland or over at Accents by the railroad at Old Town. What you'll do is they have contracted with Viral Growth Marketing and Design, and they design Christmas ornaments. And for a $15 location, you can pick up one too. If you want to get more than $15, they're certainly willing to take that. Shreese Olson does great work over in Cleveland and also here in Burleson with young people who are aging out of the foster care system and trying to adjust to adult life. And also a big one coming up November 30th, a week from Wednesday at Chisenhall Fields. We're going to have Toys for Tots. Now, last week I had Colonel Jack Matson, and Michael Perdue on. These two gentlemen are running Toys for Tots. And this is a really, obviously, a nationwide thing. It's well known, and it's come to Burleson finally. And it's over, again, November 30th from 6 to 11:30, which isn't all fields. Also, there's boxes everywhere in town. Four of my sponsors actually have them. Michelle has one. Melissa has one. Gayla and Tiffany have one on the third floor of the Windmiller building, and Chris has one. And Otto has one. How could I forget that? So there's 5. Otto has one. So a lot of the sponsors are really, putting their best foot forward. There's a lot of demand and need for this, more than you might think. We think of Burleson as a middle class community, but there are a lot of people that are struggling because the economy isn't doing as well as some would like us to think. And so, go drop off a new and unwrapped toy, and they'll take care of the rest. And one last one, we have Bracelets of Burleson's giving back on December 1st, which is a Thursday from 3:30 to 6:30. They're going to be offering a free set of braces. I could tell you, as somebody had to buy some braces for a kid, that's quite a bit. Win a free set of braces. So they have door prizes, they have giveaways, local vendors and face painting, photo booths, the whole thing. This is over on 809 Southwest Allsbury. 809 Southwest Allsbury. Braces of Burleson is having their version of a fundraiser as well, and they're making an opportunity for you to give back. All right, how rough do I sound, Taylor? Am I sounding all right?
You sound great.
Yeah, bullcorn. I mean, it's whatever.
You sound good.
All right. Anyway, let's talk briefly about what's gone on the last couple of weeks since the election, and like I said, about the feedback I've gotten. First of all, most of my Democrat friends said they liked what I had to say. The only real, I wouldn't call it criticism, their opinion, let's say, was that I undersold or undervalued, if whatever you want to phrase it, the role that abortion and the pro-choice, pro-life decision played in the elections. That may be true. I don't know. My personal feeling is that had Mr. Trump not been a factor at all, it not even existed as a factor, abortion would have been a factor in some races, but I don't know if it would have resulted in the results that it did. I still think that the primary factor in how the outcomes came about was Mr. Trump and his presence and his influence and interjection of himself into so many different races. But anyway, many of my friends that are more on the left now, I said, no, abortion is a bigger deal than you think it is. Well, okay. I'll accept their judgment because these are smart people and good friends. Another thing they did like, and Republicans across the board and Democrats across the board all agreed that Mr. Trump has to leave the scene. But it ain't going to go away today. But all of them said he is a negative influence in our political system. And this is not just hard left or anything like that. These are some of the people I was talking to are more Republican than I am, who voted for Trump twice, who thought better of Trump at a certain point than I ever did. And they said he's got to go because they see the impact this is having. I mentioned before on the last show about 2 different conversations that were had between very staunch Republican people, and they just they all to a person said, we can't have it anymore because he served a purpose at one time, but now he's just a detriment to the Republican Party. And so that I just thought that was pretty interesting. I've had other conversations like that and text messages, Facebook, etc., and they all say those kind of things. And um, and as far as Mr. Trump himself, and I got some media reports about that as well, but he gave a speech on the 15th, last Tuesday. And like every real American, I was watching college basketball. I wasn't going to spend an hour listening and talk about how great he was. I could get that enough. But I saw clips and I read the reviews, and to a person, left, right, middle, they all said it was flat, it was uninspiring, it was self-serving. He barely mentioned the Republicans at all. He didn't congratulate anybody that won, that he didn't handpick himself, which was only one, actually, Vance, in Ohio. He was he was very typical Trump, very narcissistic and self-absorbed. And he spoke for like 52 minutes, and it wasn't anything like these rallies you've been seeing the last 5 or 6 years. It was pretty dull. And I don't know if that is reflective of anything going on with him, because he seems to be completely impervious to self-reflection and a self-understanding about what's going on and how people regard him. He just seems to be in this impenetrable bubble around him and his sycophants that do not let criticism, constructive or otherwise, penetrate. And so uh, I went to the media to see what they thought about all this. And there was numerous articles, and I have holding in my hand several articles from several different outfits: New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, Politico, National Review. Those are my basic go-tos. And also I checked out the Fox page. I don't really pull a lot of news from that, but because I get my conservative-based news from the Journal and from National Review. But so these are my go-tos, and across the board, they were saying the same thing, that there's no way in the world Donald Trump is going to win the election in 2024. Now, I know they said that in 2015, but now that people know what they got with Mr. Trump, there's no way in the world he's going to win in 2024. Will he get the Republican nomination's a different story. But I was reading here, Brett Stevens, who is one of the two token conservatives of the New York Times, basically said his title is Donald Trump is finally finished. And he quotes several other people from other conservative outlets. Like, I don't know if you know who Victor Davis Hanson and Victor Davis Hanson, say it right, who is a very conservative author. And in fact, he left the National Review because he didn't think they were conservative enough. He basically uh, trashed on Mr. Trump's speech and his potential candidacy. And this is a man who wrote a book about Mr. Trump 7 years ago. Same thing with Laura Ingraham. She came out, was very, very critical of his run and his speech. Also, a guy named Kurt Schlichter at Town Hall, whom I only read occasionally, another conservative, another terrible thing, not terrible review, let's put it that way. On and on and on in Mr. Stevens' article. And then you had other articles from, as I go through the list, we have Ross Douthat of the other conservative from the New York Times saying much the same thing. No, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post all said no to his run. Also, the National Review said no. Almost all the major pundits, George Will, Jonah Goldberg, they all said much the same thing, that this has got to be the end, because you cannot continue to have a candidacy and somebody like Mr. Trump who's going to continue to bring what he does to the political spectrum. And also they have pretty good articles about here for Dan McLaughlin, National Review, about how the exit polls showed over and over and over again just how much influence that Donald Trump had over people that did not vote for the Republican ticket, or many that did so very reluctantly. And so you have to square that with with what's going on with the Republican Party, though. Um, the GOP is facing a very big dilemma right now because in 2016, one of the reasons why Mr. Trump was nominated wasn't just what he brought, but the fact they had like 18 different candidates running and it split the vote. You take the total amount of Donald Trump's vote, and it was almost a third, less than a third. Republicans actually voted for Mr. Trump. But because the other two-thirds was split up amongst all the other candidates, he got enough of the delegates, the way the primary system is run, particularly in the Republican side of it. In the Republican side of it, their states tend to be more winner-take-all in the primaries, like Texas. So if you win Texas by 5 votes, you win all the delegates. They don't divvy it up proportionally like the Democrats do. The Democrats almost always divvy them up proportionally. Some of the Republican states do that, or GOPs and Republicans do it. Some states they don't, and Texas do not. And so you have this huge state of Texas with a lot of delegates all going to one person. Now, so in 2024, Trump is the only one that's declared. And going back to his declaration, matter of fact, he hardly ever, only in passing a couple times, did he mention the GOP. It was all about him. It was relitigating all his things from the past and all the great things he did, and a lot of it was bogus about how he stopped wars and all this other business. But that the content really is immaterial. But the the fact is that if the Republicans see that the 2024 is wide open and it's going to be easy because who are the Democrats going to nominate? 82-year-old Joe Biden, et cetera, et cetera. You're going to split the vote up again. That hardcore Trump supporters will stay with Trump. And once again, because the way that the Republicans have basically created this kind of nightmare for themselves, the way they do their primaries, then they're going to have a real problem in 2024 if they have too many candidates. Now, no other Republican has declared. Ron DeSantis hasn't declared. Everybody expects him to run. He has not said, I will run for president in 2024. I do not know of anything that he's done to make preparation for that, like an exploratory committee, which is almost always a trial balloon to see how well they could do. But there is one thing I did notice. The poll changes for Republican preferences. For a year now, they've been polling, who is your preference in 2024 amongst Republican voters? And Mr. Trump was way ahead, well over 50, 60%. Now, for the first time, he's below 50%. The last couple of polls have showed time a majority of Republicans do not support Mr. Trump for president. Now, he's still in the lead, but coming up from the rear in a big hurry is Mr. DeSantis, and there's no question Donald Trump sees Ron DeSantis as his main rival because he's already called him names. He's already trying to trash some of his accomplishments. He's already trying to take credit for his victory in 2018, on and on and on. But I just thought it was interesting. The last couple of polls I saw, Mr. Trump no longer was the majority preference. The last one I saw that was from a decent pollster. He was at 47%, but Mr. DeSantis was at 32% and rising. If it's a Trump versus DeSantis pick, I'm quite confident DeSantis will win. That brings up another problem. What about a third party? You can't. Well, would Mr. Trump run as a third party? I would not have a single doubt that he would. We're not talking about a normal human being. We're talking about a man whose narcissism and self-regard is unlike almost anything I've ever seen in public life. I mean, I'm used to seeing these guys in the Senate in particular, and some presidents who think that they're the greatest thing that's ever happened to this country. Mr. Biden exhibits many of those qualities. Mr. Obama did too, but not like Mr. Trump. And I don't think it would phase him one iota. He'd just say, well, drop dead Republicans, you're ungrateful. I'll start my own party, or he'll be nominated by some other third party. And what would that do? It would hand the presidency to the Democrats. And that's the price the Republicans are paying. They paid the price 2 weeks ago. They may not be done paying that price. It's almost inconceivable to me that Mr. Trump would abide by the will of the majority of the GOP and say, well, I guess I'm going to go back to Mar-a-Lago and whatever else. I just don't see that happening. And so we're in for a long slog though, because he announced so early that we're going to be hearing about him in the news. And one of my friends asked me, "Why did he announce so early? I mean, is that typical?" And the answer is, it's not typical they announce this early, but it's not. It would not be unusual that they've been preparing already. That I would expect. You know, a lot of these guys that are going to run for president, they don't start in the year of the election. They start about 2 or 3 years prior to that, making contacts, creating structures, getting people in line in Iowa, and things of that nature. But there's another reason why I think Mr. Trump announced, and several of these authors I've been reading from said the same thing, is that Mr. Trump is very, very likely going to be indicted. He's under investigation by the state of Georgia, by the state of New York, and two different investigations from the Justice Department, one of which Attorney General Garland is put for a special prosecutor, which is cowardly, but that's typical. That's his job, but he gave it away to somebody else because he didn't want to mess with it. But Mr. Trump very likely could be indicted. The most serious indictment that he faces is the one about the documents that they found in his home. That's pretty serious. Now, you know, if you want to debate and holler and say, did he, you know, is he responsible January 6th and all this? That's a harder legal case to make, even though the evidence you think is right in front of you. The Justice Department has said, and a lot of both sides of the pundency have said, it'd be hard to convict because unless Mr. Trump got on that stage and said, go down there and look for Mike Pence and kill him, or go in there and tear up the Capitol, everything he said, it'd be very difficult to connect to that riot that happened. Now, you say, well, we saw with our own two eyes. In my constitutional law class, I teach a case called Brandenburg versus Ohio, where you have to connect overt words to overt actions. And since Mr. Trump just said, go down there and make your voice heard, all he could say is, I didn't intend for that to happen. End of case. So the documents are much more of a legal threat, and the tax situation. And also his influence or interference in the election in Georgia, they're being investigated for that. So a lot of people think he announced early so he could use any possible legal action against him as an excuse for political payback, as a witch hunt, as they're trying to get rid of me as a candidate. They're trying to prevent me from running for president. And so a lot of these smart legal guys I'm reading are saying by doing so, he's making it more difficult for certain people to bring indictments against him without him being able to claim it's just politics and not legitimate. So there you are. Now, as far as the Republicans in the House, well, as it stands, we got about 219, and it'll probably get two more when all the counting. I don't know what's taking so long in California, but there's still 3 in-call races there, and one's probably going to go Democrat, and 2 are probably going to go Republican. So it'll be about 221, which is only one less than what the Democrats had, and they seem to get things done. However, the Democrats were a lot more unified than these Republicans ever will be. As long as you got Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gosar and Matt Gaetz and some other of these guys throwing bombs from the sideline, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to get any kind of unified action. But the best a Republican can hope for from this House is a blocking action on some of the stuff that may come out of the Senate. And as far as them blocking the president, I'm sure we got several more instances to go where Joe Biden is just going to do some sort of executive order like the loan situation, the student loan situation, and there'll be hair pulling and there'll be legal threats and maybe some legal fights. But as far as a proactive Republican majority doing something about the border or about energy or whatever else, I don't see it. And even if they were able to corral some of the yahoos and get their votes, it goes to the Senate, which at best for the Republicans will be 50-50, and that's if Walker pulls off that runoff, which I have not seen any polls yet. At best, it's going to be 50-50. And then, of course, with Harris, the tie-breaking vote. So any kind of tax decrease or energy expansion of fossil fuels and whatever else is probably not going to make it. Not even going to be considered. And there you are. So what the Republicans need to do in this next couple of years is reestablish themselves, not as a party of Trump, but as a Republican Party as we used to know it. Even the Democrats would prefer that. They saw what happened in the elections. Mr. Trump went in and hand-selected numerous candidates, not just for Senate or governor, but even down to the state level. And almost all of them lost because they were all associated with extremism. They were all associated with a very hostile view of the country. They were all associated with a combative, uh, a difficult, basically an aggressive form of patriotism that most people did not like, including most Republicans that held their nose and voted for him because of the alternatives. This is a price the GOP is paying for being the party of Trump and not standing up to them earlier. Maybe the price has been paid. We'll see over the next couple of years. We'll see if they nominate a good candidate. Even the Democrats I read, there's several of them. I don't know how sincere they are, but even several of the Democrat candidates said, or politicians said, we need a better GOP because they saw in Mr. Trump a threat, not a political opponent, not a rival to contend with on issues, but as a threat. And I think the American people said that very clearly 2 weeks ago. They agreed. Why is it that men like Mike DeWine, governor Republican of Ohio, won by 19 votes, and Vance only won by about 6? Okay, why did Chris Sununu win New Hampshire by 19 points, and the Democrat Maggie Hassan won by 8 points in New Hampshire? Same thing in several other states. Nevada, the Republican candidate lost for Senate, Laxalt. The Republican candidate, Lombardo, won for governor. The evidence is clear. And if anybody wants to cling to Donald Trump as the savior of this country, they're not paying attention. And they're not thinking this through. And they're not thinking about the bigger picture. They're not thinking about all the things that need to be done that aren't being done because of the allegiance to Donald Trump. We need to do something about that border. We need to be more energy independent. Which doesn't mean we have to be ungreen, but we need to be more energy independent. We need to have better discipline in the schools, which is very, very difficult under federal rules. But as long as we have a core rump that's going to stay with Mr. Trump, we're not going to go anywhere on these issues. And the border continues to be a crisis, to be a catastrophe. We'll still have economic problems. There is a recession coming. Gas has dropped by almost $10 a gallon in the last 8 days because a recession is coming, and they know it. Now, the Democrat dilemma, well, these are their problems. This recession, they can't blame on the Republicans. The border, they can't blame on the Republicans. The energy dependence we have on Saudi Arabia, they can't blame on Republicans. They own it. They own everything. And if we go through difficult, hard times economically, like so many people are forecasting, they own it. And if they try to bend the rules in the Senate to try to pass certain legislation that most people don't support, it'll cost them. If they try to end the filibuster, which they said they're going to try to do, it'll just die in the House. And they just set up the precedent for the Republicans to do the very same thing if and when they take over the Senate, which 2024 is set up really nicely for the Republicans if they don't blow it like they did 2 weeks ago. Okay. Well, this is just a brief show to kind of give you an update. I know y'all got things going on in Thanksgiving. I hope you dial in. We'll have this on YouTube tomorrow, Taylor. Will that be about what happens?
Yeah, it'll be on Tuesday. So if you're watching this, it's Tuesday. If you're URI, it's Monday.
Okay, so you'll see on Tuesday. Y'all have a good holiday. Watch some Cowboys, eat some food, and remember, like Michelle says, go work it off afterwards. And we'll see y'all next week.